Just this week, President-elect Trump sat down with both Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio to discuss climate change, this while also announcing that he'll nominate Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to engineer climate change policy as head of the EPA. Pruitt, not exactly one who tends to listen to the likes of Gore or DiCaprio or the overwhelming majority of climate scientists. CNN's Renee Marsh has been putting together a dossier on Pruitt for us. And Renee, Dan Pfeiffer, a former senior advisor to President Obama, he tweeted after the announcement of Pruitt, quote, "At the risk of being dramatic, Scott Pruitt at EPA is an existential threat to the planet." That is quite a charge.
To say the least, he's been a lightning rod pick. I mean, we've seen passion on both sides of this. You have the Republicans who looked at the EPA as a wasteful agency that overregulates. They say that Pruitt will cut wasteful spending and useless laws. On the other side, you have environmentalists who call Pruitt dangerous, both to Americans' health and the environment. Today, we take a look at Trump's EPA pick and what it means for the air you breathe and the water you drink.
Scott Pruitt's stance is clear. The EPA is guilty of overreach.
We have an EPA, we have a federal government that is actively involved in picking winners and losers and using regulatory power to penalize fossil fuels.
As Attorney General of Oklahoma, the biggest oil and natural gas producing state in the nation, he launched multiple legal battles against the Obama administration's key climate change laws, attempting to essentially dismantle the very agency he'll now lead.
Department of Environmental Protection. We are going to get rid of it in almost every form. We're going to have little tidbits left.
Team Trump says Pruitt, quote, brings a deep understanding of the impact of regulations on both the environment and the economy.
Attorney General Pruitt has been a leader in fighting against excessive regulations from the EPA that have driven up costs for American families and businesses and have been devoid of any real meaningful environmental benefit.
Pruitt, a climate change denier, has said, quote, scientists continue to disagree about the degree and extent of global warming and its connection to the actions of mankind. A November radio interview gave insight on how he'd run the agency.
Tell us, under a Trump administration, what are you looking forward to?
Regulatory rollback. Washington has become way too consequential in the lives of citizens across the country. They've been dictating to the states, dictating to business, dictating to industry, sometimes outside of the Constitution.
It's a joy to be with you this morning.
The easiest and fastest action Pruitt can take on day one without help from Congress is simply not enforce the laws on the books. Trump says his administration values clean air and water, but his EPA pick sued the agency 12 times, challenging its Clean Power Plan, which seeks to curb carbon emissions from power plants. He's also sued the EPA for trying to curb methane emissions from the oil and gas industry.
He's taken lawsuits to eliminate the regulations on soot in the air. He's taken lawsuits that would allow more mercury to be put out by coal-fired power plants.
He's a strong supporter of the energy industry, and they support him too. In 2014, his campaign committee received more than $700,000 in contributions. More than 17% of that came from the energy industry. A 2014 New York Times investigation found he collaborated secretly with the energy industry, sending letters lobbyists wrote for him to the U.S. government attacking the EPA.
Well, Democrats don't have the power, obviously, to block, but lawmakers CNN spoke to say the game plan is to essentially reach across the aisle to have discussions about what's at stake here. But really, the big picture for the Trump administration, this goes beyond the environment. The philosophy of fewer environmental regulations really speaks to President-elect Trump's larger goal of economic growth. Of course, Jake, the thinking is if you get rid of the regulation, then that allows businesses to flourish.
Of course, a lot of concern about the air we breathe and the water we drink. Renee Marsh, thank you so much.